President for life, Marshal, conqueror of the British Empire and King of Scotland, even lord of all the beasts of earth and fishes of the seas. At the height of his power and of his madness, Idi Amin Dada adorned himself with all of these titles. Before becoming president of Uganda, Idi Amin was first a British Army soldier, then selected as one of the first 2 black Ugandans to be an officer, a champion of boxing and rugby. His career, though, really took off when his country became independent in 1962. Milton Obote, the first president of Uganda, had made him his army chief of staff. But in 1971, as the president left the country for a Commonwealth summit, Idi Amin took power. It was a coup the international community failed to condemn. The US, Great Britain and Israel, all allies of Idi Amin during his first years in power. But that power soon turned into bloodthirsty tyranny, megalomania, cruelty and paranoia.
Yes, and I will never give up. If I wanted to do something, I would never change my mind.
In his 8 years in control, hundreds of thousands of people were killed. Abandoned by all his allies, he was finally expelled from power in 1979 by the army of neighbouring Tanzania, against whom he had declared war. He found refuge in Saudi Arabia, where he lived until his death in 2003. Despite their history, though, many young Ugandans who don't personally remember his era prefer instead to remember another side of him, that of a builder, a nationalist and a separatist. The fantasy, perhaps, of a golden age, which today has disappeared. Matthias Brook, Gail Grillo and Alex Otto revisit the Kampala of Idi Amin Dada for France 24.
Uganda, the pearl of Africa. An oasis of peace and stability in a troubled region. But it wasn't always this way. 40 years ago, a brutal dictator was leaving his mark. Idi Amin Dada, who killed hundreds of thousands. Entire villages were destroyed and bodies floated in the Nile. To find someone who knew Amin well, we head towards Busheni, more than 300 kilometers west of Kampala. For the last 20 years, Eli Wakoma has lived on this isolated farm. Dubbed the president's photographer, he was given privileged access by 3 heads of state, including Amin. Eli, 80, is now a chicken farmer.
These are 200, but I'm increasing. I want to get more.
Eli met Amin well before he rose to power, when the dictator was a commander in Uganda's army.
He was a very kind man, but I think as the power went on, as the opposition came in, he started being rough.
The photographer shared Amin's daily life for a decade. This small collection contains his best pictures. In 1978, this photo was published abroad under the headline, "Is Amin Swimming or Sinking?"
When this picture appeared in the newspapers, I think Herald, New York Times, they looked for someone who took that picture. So when they identified me, I was just to be killed.
Realizing his days were numbered, Eli fled to Kenya's capital, Nairobi, where he stayed until his former friend fell from power. Kampala, Uganda's capital, a city of more than 1.5 million people. Little more than 300,000 lived here when President Milton Obote's chief of staff seized power in 1971. At the time, these 2 friends were students. In this city centre cafe, Idi Amin is still a talking point.
Obote was not in the country. was in Singapore.
Singapore. And when he went, he said he was the only
African leader
who did not
afraid
of the coup. Yes, he said. Yes, he said he was the only man who never feared anything.
And people were jubilated, happy that Amin has his chest body.
And I was one of those people who celebrated. When he came in, we did not take him seriously. We thought he would stay for a very short time. He did not speak good English. He did not have any program.
Amin was popular at first, but things quickly fell apart as the purges got underway.
So people died. At this time, if you heard of any gunshot, everyone could run.
Like many others, Dawula lost people close to him. He tells us to meet him tomorrow.
But this one was indiscriminate.
He wants to show us where his brother was kidnapped.
This was a bar, and we used to come here and drink. Even my brother used to come and drink from here. We could get seated, some sit there if the chairs were full, and then they had a disagreement and he was picked.
For reasons that remain a mystery, one of Amin's henchmen kidnapped Dawula's brother. This photo is the only one he has left. Dawula never saw his brother again and joined the armed opposition.
We were bringing in here weapon. I was involved, and they arrested us. So they throw us away, thinking we are dead.
Dawula retains the scars to this day. Hundreds of thousands disappeared as Amin's men established a reign of terror. Many suspected opponents were kept near this palace.
He began arresting all those people who are suspected to be political threats. Then lots of them could be brought to this place and was turned into a torture and killing place. So in the days of Idi Amin, that's between 1973 and 79, that's 6 years, he killed 19,000 people in this place.
These cells would hold up to 60 prisoners. The floor was flooded and electrified to finish prisoners off. Amin reputedly sometimes took part in the torture.
He could sometimes come to witness the tortures and also participate, because there are some people who he wanted to see really if they have been tortured and killed. That was his passion. He could enjoy seeing people suffer.
Today, bats have replaced the prisoners. At least 300,000 people were killed during Amin's rule, but his expulsion of 50,000 Indians was a cause of greater international concern, with Britain taking many of the refugees in. Some left the country from this railway station. At the time, Sanjeev Patel was 7.
We had to practically just go with our clothes of our lives, whatever we had. So we couldn't take our savings. And my head was on my mother's lap. And as a child, as a kid, I asked for Coke. I wanted to drink a Coke. And suddenly she started crying and her tears fell on my face. And I said, "Why are you crying?" And then I realized she didn't have a single money to buy me a Coke also.
Amin shared out hundreds of millions of dollars of Indians' property, including much of central Kampala, to bolster loyalty among cronies and potential rivals. But the exodus of skilled labour stoked an economic crisis. After Amin's fall, some Indians returned. The small community of around 25,000 is the biggest employer after the state.
It has been said that we almost contribute over 60% of the domestic revenue. It is a great contribution by the Indian and Indian origins after what has happened back into the country and bring Uganda back to its feet. But we are more proud to say that we are also Ugandan Indians rather than Indians only.
To show how the community is integrated, Sanjeev invites us to a party at the Indian embassy, attended by Uganda's vice president.
Is showing the cordial relation between Uganda and the Indian community and the Indian government, is that they are ready to be part, and in our celebrations, as much as we are happy to be part of their celebrations.
The Indian community hopes to acquire formal ethnic status to bring it parliamentary representation. While Amin's rule is distant, it remains an obsession for some.
It's out. Finally. Sorry for the delay.
Jaffer Amin is the seventh of around 60 children fathered by the dictator, and one of the few who openly claims his heritage. He doesn't deny crimes took place, but says his father is unfairly caricatured.
The reason I set up Al Amin Foundation, because of the animosity, the historical animosity towards my father and the accusations towards him. And I want the country to, I want us to teach the youth, who are 80% of Ugandans, a need for reconciliation rather than perpetuating the hate.
Jaffer grew up in Entebbe, about 40 kilometers from Kampala. He takes us to the shores of Lake Victoria, where he used to play with his father.
One day we went out with a massive Zodiac boat. I thought we were going to Munyonyo, then he started going around in a circle. He kept going around in a circle, and I said, "Daddy, are you sick?" And he started laughing. And my father's laugh, he used to shake his chest. Then he drove back the thing, he said, your sausages are ready. So it's one of those unique memories they used to have.
In 1976, Uganda hit headlines. An Air France plane en route from Tel Aviv to Paris was hijacked by Palestinian and German militants before landing close to here. Amin colluded with the hijackers, provoking a daring rescue by Israeli commandos.
There's always a mistake of this 707 for the Airbus that was in the famous Entebbe raid, but it's not. But everyone who comes here assumes, yeah, it must be the one. No, he sent it back.
The Israeli special forces freed most of the hostages. Jaffer wants to apologize to those who were killed.
My greatest dream would be to go and meet the families of Jean-Jacques, Maimoni, Ida Borovitz, Pasco Cohen, and say sorry.
Jaffer hopes history will iron out his father's legacy.
My father is actually considered the father of economic emancipation. Today, we're a very independent people, and actually, we have a very strong self-esteem, and I believe that is my father's legacy.
In the West, Idi Amin is seen as among the worst dictators of the second half of the 20th century. But in Uganda, some young people begged to differ, even believing Amin brought prosperity.
Everything that was done in his regime was perfect. When we talk of perfect, like now the infrastructure, the roads, in Idi Amin's regime, when roads were made, they were made perfectly.
His leadership was good. He built hospitals, and there were jobs during his period.
Some politicians here ride this wave of nostalgia. Among them, Pastor Abed Bwanika. He agrees to meet us. A losing presidential candidate in 2016, he seeks to rehabilitate the dictator's image.
Idi Amin, he had his own failures, but also there is another side of Idi Amin, which is not known, especially to the outside world. Idi Amin was a nationalistic. He loved this country. We don't have any record in this country where Idi Amin stole the resources of Uganda.
With 80% of Ugandans under the age of 30, the country has the second youngest population in the world. Uganda has been at peace for many years, but millions of young people are unemployed and corruption is rampant. So it's little surprise that some find solace in a bygone era, even one overshadowed by the ghost of a brutal and paranoid dictator.
Thais Brooke, Gail Grillo and Alex Otto revisiting the Kapala of Idi Amin Dada. Well, that's all from this week's edition of Revisited. Don't forget, of course, you can catch it and the previous editions as well on our website. There's more news coming up. Thanks for watching.